The moment I returned home after work and stepped into the living room, what I saw was an unexpected sight. "Somebody, please help me." My husband was rolling around on the floor in agony, writhing, moaning, curling his body. Not a stitch on his body. He was breathing heavily and clearly in pain. I tried to call an ambulance in a panic, wondering if he was injured or ill, but my snatched the phone from my hand and prevented me from calling. "Don't call the ambulance. I'm the one who did this." My daughter gave my husband a cold look. I could only be surprised that my daughter would act like this. My name is Grace, a 35-year-old housewife working as an office worker. I live in a rented apartment with my husband, Christopher, and our 12-year-old daughter, Scarlett. We are busy working together, but we share the household chores, and our daughter even helps us out. My daughter may be a little sassy at times, but she's grown up to be a good girl who helps me with the housework. She recently entered junior high school and joined the badminton club, playing hard every day. "God, you forgot to pack your lunch again." "Well, sorry." "Thanks, I almost got hungry at lunch." "Oh my God, be really careful." This is the kind of conversation that goes on every morning at our house. I married my husband because I liked his good sense of humor and his ability to talk. Although he is a bit of a snob, he is mainly a salesman and travels a lot. But he usually spends time with his family and is kind enough to buy us souvenirs. Recently, however, I have been feeling a little dissatisfied or worried about my husband. The reason for this was my husband's recent behavior. He seems to be working harder than ever, and because of this, he has started asking me to do his share of the household chores because he is busy. I can't manage with the help of my men. Can I ask you to help me for a while? I want to do my best because it will help me get ahead in my career. If this project goes well, I'm really sorry, but I promise I'll make this up to you. A while ago, my husband asked me if I would be willing to do all of the housework that we share for a while. He said that he is working on a big project and wants to concentrate on his work for a while. To be honest, it is hard for me to do it on my own since I am also busy with my own work, but I've never seen my husband so motivated before. Thinking about the future, he should put in the effort if it will help him get ahead in his career. Besides, even I have had times when I was busy at work or sick, and my husband took care of everything. It's just until work settles down, and if that's the case, it wouldn't be a problem for me to take care of the house on my own for a while. We have partners to help each other at times like this. I did as my husband asked and decided to do his share of the housework. It's tough, isn't it, Dad? I'll help you as much as I can. My daughter, who had heard our conversation, said she would cooperate, and true to her word, she helped me with the housework when she was free. Thanks to her help, we had no problems in the beginning, and other than a slight increase in my workload, our days were as peaceful as ever. However, after a few months, the job that my husband had been assigned showed no sign of being finished. On the contrary, he gradually started coming home late from work, and it was not unusual for him to stay out all night without any notice. When is that job going to be finished? I think it's been quite a while. I'm working too, so I don't want to be left to do the housework forever. Besides, at least call me if you're going to be home late. It would be a waste of time preparing meals. I think that even if work is the reason, as long as we are living together, we need to have at least a minimum level of contact and consideration for each other. My husband has lost all understanding of such things and has started to act selfishly. Furthermore, when I ask him when the project he is in charge of is going to be finished, he gives me vague and misleading answers. I too have my own pace in terms of work and other matters, and the current irregular situation is honestly stressful. I was told that it would be a while, but since he has been leaving me to do all the housework for several months, I would like to know when he will settle down, even if it is just a rough estimate. So I just asked him about his work, but after a few times of asking, my husband started to get upset for some reason. I'm so busy with work that I don't have time to spare. Don't complain just because I'm a little late. In the first place, housework is supposed to be done by a woman. It's just a return to the proper form. Besides, it's good bridal training for Scarlett, and she should do more housework. My husband, who is increasingly confined to his room, is upset and says things as if he has no intention of doing the housework anymore. Recently, he has started leaving the house early in the morning to go to work, as if he doesn't want me to ask him about this or that. It has never happened before that he goes to work without eating breakfast, and when he comes home after work, he stays in his room most of the time. My husband would not talk to us at home, and before I knew it, there were no more family conversations during meals, and the atmosphere in our home was deteriorating. When my husband is around, the atmosphere in the house is awkward and really uncomfortable. As I watched my husband's attitude, I began to have certain suspicions about him. It was, of course, about his project. How is it possible for him to come home late every day for such a long period of time? I heard that he stayed overnight at the office on the days he stayed out all night, but I couldn't imagine such an occurrence happening so many times. No matter how busy he has been, above all, the biggest question I have is about my husband's attitude. Even if he can't afford it, his recent attitude of not wanting to be involved with the family is unacceptable. Maybe he is hiding something from us. When I think about it, I feel so sorry for my daughter. She is doing her best to help me, but my husband and I don't even talk to each other anymore. Isn't there something wrong with Dad? I haven't seen much of his face lately. The other day, he ignored me and quickly went back to his room. He looked so sulky and didn't want to talk to us. It was kind of scary. My daughter has naturally voiced her concerns about my husband's change. However, I could only stroke my daughter's head as she spoke so anxiously. It must be very painful for a child to have parents who don't get along with each other, especially since our family had never had any problems until now. It was hard for me, but I had to give priority to taking care of my daughter's feelings. In addition to the many things I have to think about, such as my husband and daughter, I am also very busy on a daily basis. These days were becoming more and more full for me. I should have done something to investigate my husband, but I couldn't move easily. I was afraid of what would happen if my investigation revealed unacceptable facts. It was just an escape from reality, but I kept putting off confronting my husband. Then one day a terrible incident occurred in our home. I was busy at work that day and came home later than usual. Naturally, there was no word from my husband about whether he had finished work or was going to be home late. I rushed home, thinking only of my daughter, who was probably waiting for me, hungry at home. "I'm home, Scarlett." "I'm sorry, I'll make dinner soon." I called out to my daughter as I rushed into the living room. I thought I would change my clothes and get ready for dinner right away, but when I saw the living room, I froze in my tracks. There, to my surprise, I found my husband lying on the floor with nothing on. "What the hell?" "Dan it, you. Somebody, please help me." My husband was rolling around on the floor in agony, curling up and moaning. As he said this, he was breathing hard and clearly in pain. "Oh, Mom, welcome home. You're back late today, aren't you tired? If it's too hard, I'll cook dinner. Be careful there, it's dangerous. Dad will hit your leg." My daughter was sitting on the sofa, playing with her cell phone. It was a strange sight. She was treating my fallen husband as if he were not there. I was aghast at the incomprehensible situation, but then I came back to myself. My husband was curled up, sweating and writhing in pain. I don't know what happened, but this was not normal. "What are you doing, Scarlett? We have to call an ambulance right away. Why did you leave him as is? Christopher, are you okay? Where does it hurt? What's wrong with you?" I immediately pulled out my phone and tried to call an ambulance, but my daughter prevented me from doing so. She took the phone from my hand and prevented me from making a call. "You don't have to call an ambulance." I did this, but he's not hurt or sick. My daughter gave my husband a surprisingly cold look. Was my daughter the cause of my husband's collapse? I was even more puzzled because I did not know what was going on. Then, as if to explain to me, my daughter spoke up again. "You don't have to call an ambulance or worry about this guy. He betrayed us and has been making fun of us behind our back." My daughter's voice was so chilling that my husband shuddered when he heard it. My husband was about to say something, but he was so upset that his mouth was just clamped shut. What in the world was going on? I have never seen my daughter sound so cold, and she had always been such a good, loving girl. She had never called her father that guy. "I put mint cream on his underwear, and it's cold and painful and bad, depending on where you put it." "So I did it, and it worked pretty well on him, didn't it?" So that's why my husband was fainting in agony. After hearing my daughter's story, I remembered my husband's reaction earlier, and it made sense. But why did my daughter do that? As I was wondering, my daughter silently offered me something. It was her husband's phone. The password had been unlocked, and I could see the screen glowing. My husband, who had been watching his daughter's behavior, curled up and yelled in a panicked manner. "Scarlett, hey, stop. You know what you're doing. I can't believe you're playing this prank on your father. I don't remember raising you like that. Now, if you apologize and give me back the phone, I'll forgive you, so give it to me." The sight of my husband looking so horrified, with his crotch still held in place, was nothing short of comical. With such a comical appearance, my husband desperately yelled at my daughter to give him back his phone over and over again. He told me never to look at the screen, although his attitude seemed intimidating. My husband felt as if he was frightened of something. In fact, my daughter also snickered at my husband for yelling at her and pointed the screen of his phone at me. Not listening to him at all, "Mom, you'll see it all when you see this proof that this guy was cheating on us. Frankly, I don't want to explain it out myself, so you can get confirmation directly yourself." My daughter's attitude, which seemed to be throwing me for a loop, gave me an idea of what was on the phone. Although somehow I knew what to expect, surely there must be some truth there that I had been turning away from. It was time to face my husband, though in an unexpected way. I took the phone from my daughter and turned my eyes to the screen. What I saw on the screen was my husband exchanging messages with what appeared to be a woman. My wife is an idiot, too. She's desperately trying to do my housework that I've forced on her. "You're so different from my wife, who is older than you. I hope I lose my wife and daughter in some accident or something. Then I could be with you. You are more important to me than my current family. I can't live without you." The moment I saw the text my husband was sending, I felt like I was going to fall to my knees. The words were so terrible, both to me and to my daughter, and the woman also affirmed my husband's message, whispering words of love. My husband was comparing her to me and talking derisively about how inferior I was as a woman. I was more than angry. I was mortified by the awfulness of the content that was clearly messages with an adulterer. I overheard Dad talking on the phone with the adulterer before. He was saying a lot of bad things about Mom at that time. Mom was doing a great job at home and at work in place of Dad, so I knew I had to get proof. Although my daughter was not crying, her voice was trembling as she accused my husband's infidelity. According to her faltering story, my husband had been on the phone with the adulterer when she was caught off guard, dozing on the sofa. My daughter awoke at that point, but pretended to be asleep and listened to their conversation. When my daughter learned of my husband's betrayal, she planted mint cream in his underwear and took his phone while he was in agony in order to get solid proof. I was amazed at her ingenuity and energy, and at the same time, as a mother, I felt sorry for her. I had let her do this to me because I had turned away from how hurt she must have felt when she found out that her father had left the family and had an affair. To top it all off, the father even badmouthed the mother and seemed to be enjoying himself seeing her being so cold to him. She must have been hurt a lot. Despite this, my daughter tried her best to get the evidence for me. This was no time for escaping from reality. I should have left him as soon as possible. I am sorry I put you through this, but thank you so much. It is my fault. I should have made the decision to face your father sooner. I don't want this kind of husband anymore. I will get a divorce right away, and I will do my best to live with my daughter. I bowed to my daughter, apologized, and told her to get ready to leave home immediately. Medley, let's move in with my parents for a while. My daughter smiled at me and nodded strongly. It's definitely better that way. I only need my mother. This guy said he'd rather we didn't. Yes, right. I smiled back at her. That's when my husband started to panic. He stood up and reached for his phone in my hand as if he was trying to take away evidence, but he was dizzy and I could easily avoid him. My husband slipped and fell, groaning again and falling to the floor. The damage from the mint cream was still there, apparently. My husband, lying on the floor, face pale and shaking, still yelling frantically, "Wait a minute. Are you really going to divorce me? You must be joking. I was just having a little fun with her. We're not seriously going to be together. Single mothers are going to have a hard time. You can't give Scarlett a hard time. Please consider again. We've been married for more than 10 years and there's no way we're getting a divorce now." Having no longer had any affection left for my husband, who was always saying selfish things, how could he think he could be forgiven after making such a fool of his affair partner and us? He may have meant it as a joke, but he had written a message that he wanted me and our daughter to leave. No parent in their sane mind would ever say such a thing to their daughter, let alone to me. And then there was his attitude toward us at home. Probably after the affair started, I thought my husband was working hard, which is why I was doing his share of the housework. We had worked so hard as a couple, and I knew that when we were in trouble, it was mutual. But now I am just angry that he was enjoying the affair. I don't trust this kind of man at all. I'm sorry, but it's bad for Scarlett's education, and I feel sorry for her to have a lousy man like you around, as you wrote in the message. She is a colleague of yours at work, right? I'm going to charge you and your girlfriend alimony, so be prepared. I told him that I would bring the divorce papers later and left the apartment where we had lived as a family with my daughter. I could hear my husband yelling behind me, but neither I nor my daughter looked back at all, and we continued walking in silence, tripping on the way to my parents' house. I felt a little sad, wondering how this could have happened. I don't think I made a mistake in choosing to divorce my husband. Still, until recently we had been a close family. I never imagined that we would fall apart so easily. Let's be happy even without your father from now on. I will work even harder, but it might be hard for you after all, I said apologetically. She shook her head and grinned. Don't worry. I have my mother to take care of me from now on. The two of us will work hard together. I couldn't help but cry as my daughter said this kindly to me. My husband is such a fool for saying he doesn't want such a good girl. Definitely, I was sure that I would be fine from now on, and that I am happy I have such a reassuring family. Later, we visited my parents' house late at night, and they were surprised to see us. But when they heard what happened, they immediately took our side. They said they would help us with whatever we needed to do to get a divorce from my husband. With the help of my parents, I immediately went to a lawyer the next day and formally requested one. I immediately began preparing for a divorce from my husband. During that time, my husband was constantly contacting me, but I ignored all of them and moved forward with the divorce. It took a long time because my husband was insistent, but after about 6 months, I successfully divorced my husband. My husband wanted to start over with me many times, but he finally gave up when we were on the verge of court. I was able to get alimony paid from both my husband and the adulterer, and I was also able to get custody of my daughter. I felt fine when it was all over, and I was finally able to look forward. I'm living a busy but happy life with my daughter, forgetting about my husband. A few months after my divorce, my husband called me with a request to get back together. He had been divorced because of the affair, and his parents had cut him off, and the affair partner had left him. His affair became known to everyone around him at work, and he is now working in a state where he is looked at like a bed of nails. I refused the phone call requesting reconciliation and immediately blocked Christopher's number from my phone. Although being a single mother can be difficult at times, my daughter and I are doing well.